Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we are talking to Aiden Lee, who is a co-founder at a YC company. I think a lot of people who are PMs or interested in PMs also want to become founders themselves. So I thought it'd be a really great opportunity to have Aiden here to talk about Aftercare, the company he's running as a co-founder, and his journey to this point. So thank you so much, Aiden, for joining.
No, thanks for having me. Really excited to be here, Michael.
Awesome. So let's jump into it. I think we've had a journey from finance to investment banking roles as a full-time analyst, then into growth strategist role at Datadog, and then ultimately becoming a founder at a YC-backed company. So I really am excited to hear your journey and how you made those decisions throughout your career. So if you can maybe take us back to your NYU days in undergrad, maybe what were you aspiring to do at that point?
So back in NYU, I had a singular goal, which was to become an investment banker. And that was pretty much it from the time that I was a freshman. And I think this stemmed from a couple things. The first one was my dad was in finance previously, looked up to him, so wanted to follow in the footsteps per se. But also in business schools, I feel like a lot of people get caught up in a hype cycle to get a prestigious position and become successful so that when they can go home to their parents, they can talk about a job that they're proud of, and then also have a good salary coming out of college. So definitely got caught up in that and didn't really think too much about exactly what I wanted to do on the job. So when I did get to investment banking and it was different than what I had thought, it really made me reconsider a lot of the decisions that I made in college.
Gotcha. So in college, you're, head down and aiming for investment banking and taking finance classes. And once you got to that dream job, right, the title, like what was that actual experience in the first year?
Yeah. So my first year of banking was fully during COVID. So I was in a home office for the many investment banking hours that people talk about, working by myself. And I think banking does teach you to work really hard. But what I discovered at the time was I wanted to build something that people could use and people would take joy out of working with or using. And I wasn't getting that experience from my job. And while I loved my teammates and it was definitely a great fit for some folks there, it definitely wasn't a good fit for me.
Was there something that inspired that wanting to build product or build something that users would be interacting with and impact people?
I think I always had this curiosity. Coming out of college and high school, I had a lot of friends who were software engineers or were in product. And it seemed really exciting to talk to users, think about creating something, actually getting to work, putting something together that gave people joy. And while I was working on slides at the investment bank or models, I just wasn't really getting that experience of like talking to users or selling somebody on an idea of something that I could create and help push forward from the beginning to the end. And I think that curiosity just grew and grew through the long hours that I had putting together those decks. And it wasn't just like one moment that made me think that. It was a progression of working through many hours in that job.
Gotcha. So once you realized tech and building product was the next step for you, what did you do next to actually achieve that?
So while I was in banking, I actually signed up for a PM bootcamp, and I didn't really learn too much about what a PM did day to day, because I think that's something you would get from actually working on the job and working with a product team. But I did get very good at interviewing for PM positions at the time. So I was able and lucky enough to get 2 offers for PM positions, but it was a combination of the team not being exactly the right fit that I wanted, and the salary wasn't really exactly what I wanted either. So decided to go for a more traditional role coming out of investment banking, which was working for a strategy and operations team. at a tech company. So I
Mm-hmm.
moved to Datadog's growth strategy team at the
Mm-hmm.
time. And there were a lot of other bankers and consultants there. So
Mm-hmm.
very comfortable fit. And I was really lucky to learn a lot of great things at that company and that team as well.
That's awesome. And something we have in common is we both worked at Datadog. So I'm a big fan of the company as well. And it makes sense. It is New York based. So you do have like that finance influence.
Yeah, I was scoping out the product team a little bit. Saw you on Slack a couple times. So that was cool.
Cool. So you've taken the boot camp and moved into a growth strategy role. So what does that role actually means for people who might not be familiar with that title, and how is it different from maybe some of the adjacent roles that are around it?
Yeah, so the growth strategy team, when I got there, the team name changed very quickly to go to market strategy and operations. And
Mm-hmm.
I do think that's a very apt name for it, where you as a team member work closely with senior leaders from other teams around the company to help
Mm-hmm.
build the go-to-market engine. So, for example, on our team, I worked very closely with the leaders on the customer success organization, and we helped stand up different initiatives to help the CS team cross-sell and upsell products. We would work with them to plan headcount to make sure that the customer success team could support the new logos coming in from the sales team.
Mm-hmm.
And then we would work cross-functionally with other leaders to get initiatives done that would involve the team that you might be supporting and the other team. For example, at Datadog, the customer success team worked very closely with the sales team to make sure that logos were being landed, moved to the customer success team, and the entire customer experience was seamless, even through the transitions and passing it off to different account managers, for example. So I think the great benefit of working on a team like that is being able to work cross-functionally, and also getting very comfortable communicating with like those senior leadership type roles to push forward any initiatives, and got to work a little bit with the product team as well on some security initiatives. So that was really exciting. So going back to that drive or fire within me to want to build something that people wanted, I think product and being a founder are very similar in that it serves those purposes. And at the time, I was living with my elementary school buddy in New York City, and he was a software engineer at Palantir. And we had talked a bit about working on startup projects here and there. We were also playing like a lot of video games while working our tech jobs.
Mm-hmm.
So we're just hanging out. But we really wanted to take the next step and work on something together. And we also were able to have one of our other high school friends, other elementary school buddies, join us at the company very soon after we had this idea of starting to work on a startup together. And fortunately, the Y Combinator summer 23 deadline was a couple months out from when we started working. And that really helped us drive toward a goal, start talking to users and building product. So unfortunately, we didn't get into YC that first time that we applied, but it really helped us start working as a team, and allowed us to see potential in each other as co-founders to take this for the long term.
Gotcha. And is there an initial idea that you guys came in with when applying to YC that first time?
Yeah, so we applied with the idea of a project management solution for investment banks. And because I was an investment banker before, had a lot of warm intros to folks around the industry. So it was a natural starting place. And the problem there was that if you've been a banker or if you've been a consultant, many times the junior teams get staffed by, in our case, it's a vice president, also called a staffer. and they don't have full visibility on the capacity of each junior member. And because of that, there's some inefficiency there. One analyst might be working on like 7 deals at once, might be underwater. Another analyst might have a lot of capacity and might not be so utilized. So we wanted to make something maybe like a Jira or Asana for an investment bank where you could track the tasks and the projects, epics, in a similar sense for the investment bank where you could really allocate your resources better and create more efficiency for the team. Unfortunately, I think financial services definitely a difficult place to sell for a first-time founder. They take a really long time to adopt products. I think there were some other structural issues like analysts and some bankers not wanting to have their capacity tracked all the time, understandably. And it's a really long sales cycle as well.
Yeah.
So, but I will say it was a great opportunity to start working with the team, start building trust, and start building product.
Gotcha. So the second time around applying to YC, what was that idea that you guys came back with?
The second time was a contract repository for procurement teams. And this was a completely different idea. To give a little bit more background before that, after the banking idea, we were thinking of building a solution in the sales space, built some prototypes like an AI sales development representative. And before the second YC application, very close to when the next interview was, we pivoted to the procurement space because my co-founder had some experiences with the procurement team where we thought were a good opportunity to explore. So we teed up a whole bunch of procurement interviews through warm intros right before the YC application deadline, did all of them. And when we applied to YC, we actually didn't have a prototype yet built. We had been constantly updating YC over startup school on what we were doing. They had our application from before, but it was actually super early days when we had applied that second time with that procurement idea.
Right.
Yeah.
So that procurement idea, it wasn't completely flushed out when applying. It sounds like you were interviewing and gathering insights. And did you apply with just the idea, and once you joined YC, it developed a little bit more, or how did that actually work out?
Yeah, so we got on the YC interview call, and it's famously a very short call, 15, 20 minutes. And we answered the questions as best as we could with the knowledge that we gained from the user interviews that we had done. And at the end of the YC interview call, we got a message from one of the group partners, who's our group partner now. And she mentioned, when can you get a demo ready for us? And we had mentioned on the call that we had nothing ready. So what we did in the next week was we'd go to our day job, work the normal hours. Then my co-founder, Anand, who was living in San Francisco, he actually flew in to New Jersey where my other co-founder, Justin, and I were living. And we just worked all night for, I'd say, like 5 days. And then we submitted something after pulling an all-nighter on like a Friday night on like a Saturday morning. I have a picture on LinkedIn that I posted of like a Taco Bell bag in front of like all the monitors and computers that we had spread out there. But after we submitted that demo, group partner was able to try it out. And we got a second call, which we had thought was an interview, but we got a few questions and then were accepted on that call, which was really exciting.
Gotcha. Wow. That is amazing level of commitment to get it done in 5 days, to go from pretty much idea to customer facing product. Now that you're in YC, so how did Aftercare come to be like what it is today and the customer base that you're really focused on now?
Yeah, so after going through YC, we stuck with the procurement idea for around 7 months or so, and we pivoted through many different iterations of that. And I think one misconception that folks that might not be in the startup space have is that sometimes like the first idea is the idea that you're going to run with for the rest of the life of your company. But many startups pivot multiple times. So for us, that was the case, and we started in procurement, worked through a few different ideas there. Afterward, we were in the e-commerce space for a while. We actually built a few prototypes for ad optimization, which doesn't have much to do with procurement at all.
Yeah.
In the e-commerce space, we built a post-purchase survey for e-commerce stores. So after, for example, on Shopify, you purchase a product, you can gather feedback on a screen following the order. And we realized that that survey could be more generalizable to other companies as well that wanted to capture better feedback. And there's a lot of opportunities for AI to capture that better feedback through AI follow-up questions. And then the second thing is, once you get all that data coming in from customers, a lot of it was open ends. So you can analyze, summarize, categorize, and make sense of all that data very quickly using LLMs. So from there, it was also a much larger TAM. You know, there are really large companies in the survey space, became really bullish on that space. And that's how we kind of got into that area.
That's awesome. What a journey. Did you end up focusing on a user? I know you mentioned multiple industries that I can actually utilize the product, but is there an ideal customer profile that is working within these companies that is responsible for the surveys?
Yeah, right now we are focusing mostly on market research companies that have a existing survey solution that we can connect with their solution, help them ask intelligent follow-up questions to improve the survey data that they're selling to clients. And on the other side, for data, when they do get in a large quantity of data, we can help them clean and process some of that as well and check for things like survey fraud, if there's LLM usage, copy paste answers, and that saves their analysts lots of time from looking through line by line at these answers. So that's on the B2B side. On the consumer side, we also have a walk-up application. The easiest way you can think of it is a SurveyMonkey or Typeform with AI, where you can program your own survey and send it out. So if you guys are curious to try it out, there's a free plan on getaftercare.com.
Awesome. Definitely check it out, and we'll include it in the description of this video as well. And that's very exciting. I mean, I've used surveys even in product marketing, product management roles when you're looking to get feedback, whether it's on your website or your product within the product experience as well. So super interested to see how AI is actually going to make that process simpler. Like you said, like fraud is a big problem, or someone even using AI to complete the survey itself is something I've never even thought about. That could be outlier data you might not be interested in. Yeah, any other sort of problems you think are critical that Aftercare can really focus on in the future, or that you're really envisioning for the company?
Yeah, I think to give like a broader vision of things, and my co-founder Anand put this very well before, that surveys have seen an evolution over time. Before the 2000s, you know, people were filling out surveys on pen and paper. In the early 2000s, you can see solutions like SurveyMonkey, where people can finally fill out online forms and collect that data. Then in the mid 2000s, you get solutions that are like beautiful forms like Typeform. And now with AI, there's really an opportunity for a survey solution to dominate the space with all of these very logical uses of LLMs. And we just want to be on the bleeding edge of that, and we'll be able to hopefully dominate the space.
That's awesome. Exciting time, definitely, for tech, being a founder, especially with new technology. So let's maybe regroup around the question that most of our listeners might be interested in, which is actually getting into YC and going through that process. So from your experience of applying multiple times and seeing what works best, like advice that you would pass on, right? What are tips that you would pass on to those aspiring to maybe apply to YC and get it?
Yeah, start now. Start talking to users now. Make the baby steps to just get the process going. And what I mean by that is if you don't have a co-founder and want one, you should start scoping out folks that you could start working with. If there's an area that you're interested in building a product in, start talking to those folks and start finding out what their pain points are. Try to validate or invalidate whether or not, more on the invalidate side, whether it is a good idea or not to start building in that area. And I think another thing is just being accountable for yourself. And if you do have co-founders, for your entire team. If you're working part-time, work every single day on it, even if it's just a little bit. I know it's tiring, but if that's really what you want, you're going to have to put in the time to make it a full-time gig instead of a part-time gig. It definitely was brutal hours that we were putting in while we were part-time. And that is unfortunately the expectation if you want to continue good performance at your current position and work on something that's like a passion project on the side that you hope to become something full-time.
Got it. That was really, really helpful to hear. And then the other side of that is anything that you've seen now that you are on the full-time founder side and gone through the YC experience, you think are anything that you think is a misconception about being a founder or going through YC that people have generally?
The founder's journey, there are a lot of ups and downs, and you don't realize how high the highs are and how low the troughs are when you are not a founder yet. No, this is not a misconception at all. I was just going to say that everybody in YC and all the companies that you become friends with, they really become like great friends, and it's like just an awesome community. I think the reason that I brought this up in the misconception side is sometimes people might feel that there might be some competitiveness with other startups, but it's really like helping each other as a community. So that was really exciting and something that I was happy about when I joined. If I was in college again, I would really try to talk to as many, like broaden the net of industries that I was talking to folks in. For me, I only spoke to investment bankers, which at the time just got me more excited about investment banking, which I think wasn't the worst outcome, but it would have been a little bit better if I had taken time to speak to folks in products, if I had spoken to more software engineers, understand what their day-to-day really looked like so that I could make a more informed decision about the career path that I could take. And yeah, that's probably the number one thing that I would have changed.
Awesome. That's really good to hear. I 100% agree. And that will be the end of this interview. Thank you so much, Aiden Lee, for joining. If you have any questions for Aiden, maybe we'll throw up his LinkedIn as well. Go check his page out and follow his posts to see the journey that Aftercare is on. And check out their tools as well if you're interested in creating your own surveys and seeing how AI can make that journey easier.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me on, Michael.